Hi there. I'm Kimberly Barker, the Emerging Technology Librarian at the University of Virginia's Claude Moores Health Sciences Library. And wow, that was a mouthful. Today, I'd like to take an opportunity to talk to you about why you might choose to take this class on personal branding. For years, a metaphor that I have used to persuade organizations and individuals about the importance of doing outreach via social media and other communication channels is the party metaphor. Now, if you stick with this class, you will quickly learn that I have a great love of hobbits and that in fact, I am a hobbit. So bear with me because I may talk about parties a lot. But the party metaphor is very simple and it goes like this. Say that you decide you're going to host a party. There are several things that you do. You pick out the music for the party. You pick out the decorations, perhaps, for the party. You make sure that you're going to have great food and beverages for your guests. You make sure your house is clean. You do all of this prep work. When the day of the party comes, no one shows up. Why is no one showing up? Oh, I know why no one's showing up. It's because I forgot to send out invitations. I forgot to tell people that I was throwing a party. I like to use this as a metaphor because I believe, quite honestly, everyone has a gift to give this world. Everyone has talents, everyone has gifts. But if you don't tell people that, if you don't share that knowledge with the world, people don't know how to find you and they don't know that you have these gifts to give. I know that for some people, the idea of branding and promoting yourself feels kind of icky because especially in some cultures, the idea of putting yourself forward and somehow saying, I'm really good at this, is frowned upon, and I have a lot of respect for that. However, I believe that to deny the world the gifts that you can give, you do a disservice to the world because sometimes, honestly, you are the best person for the job. And if you don't let people know what your gifts are, then they don't know that you're the right person. So there is a way to do personal branding and marketing of yourself that feels very clean and very authentic. And those are the kind of things that we're going to explore in this course. So if this is interesting to you, please consider sharing the course with others. Definitely consider taking it. One of my big goals for the course is to create a really warm, supportive community where learners can interact with each other and with me, and we can really build a community out of this in which we can support each other in these goals. So I hope you'll consider, get in touch if you have questions. I'd love to hear from you. Personal branding. Why bother? I am so glad that you asked that question. For me, personal branding is just as much about determining internally what's important to you, what your values are, what kind of work you want to do, as it is about the external of promoting yourself and making it easy for the right kinds of people to find you for the right kinds of work. If you've looked at all through this course at the assignments and learning objectives, you already know that particularly in the first part of the course, we're doing a lot of work on figuring out what makes you tick, how your personality is organized, and what your values are. And I believe that that's important because you have to know all of that and you have to have it clearly in your mind before you can go out and talk to other people about those things. So that is definitely one reason why branding could certainly be of benefit to you. Some of the exercises you'll find may not even be things that you will ever share as part of your brand. They serve more just as an internal roadmap for yourself. So that's one reason that personal branding is really important and why you should bother. Some other reasons include the fact that building a brand will help differentiate you from people who do similar work. It will get your name out there and you will become associated with certain qualities. And we'll talk more about that later. But differentiating you from the crowd, very important. Building reputation, kind of similar to that, but you want your name, when people to hear your name, You want them to associate you with certain kinds of things. For instance, I am associated amongst medical librarians with reputation management, with the work that I've done there. I'm actually famous amongst a very small group of people on the internet. I hope you're very impressed. But seriously, as far as I know, I am the only person in the world of medical librarianship, amongst librarians anyway, who is doing reputation management work and has been doing it for close to 5 years now. Now watch, I'll get an angry email from somebody in this world who's like, I've been doing reputation management for 80 years. And in advance, I'm sorry if I get that wrong. But as far as I know, I am the only person. And that's not by accident. It's not by accident that medical librarians whom I've never met hear of reputation management and think of me, or hear my name and say, oh, doesn't she do stuff with reputation management or something like that? I don't make it a secret. When I'm giving a presentation somewhere or I'm updated my class, I'll provide a link to the slide deck via social media, and I share that. I want to get that word out because I believe in the work that I do. I believe very firmly and very strongly that reputation management is important. Now, I have some colleagues who believe that it's kind of fake and don't think it's that important, and I respectfully disagree with them. I think that everybody has or should have the opportunity to put their best foot forward and to always consider what they look like to other people, to make sure that the image that they're projecting matches their internal values. So I happen to believe it's very important. So when I do something new with it, I want to share that with people. And sharing that work, sharing the slide decks, sharing articles not written by me but on the topic, that has helped to build my reputation in that area as someone who does reputation management the right way. And by that I mean ethically. And that has led to speaking engagements at other institutions. It's led to webinars. It's led to all kinds of opportunities, which is the way that this whole personal branding thing is supposed to work. Another aspect of why you should do personal branding is related to those, and again, that's providing awareness. I've said it before, I will say it again. I believe that everybody in this world has a gift to offer the world, and part of that is getting that word out that, hey, I have this gift and I want to give this gift. So you're providing awareness to people, not only about yourself, but you are going to pick up on things, and certain things are going to catch your eye, like different articles that you read that nobody else will necessarily pay any attention to you. And you can pass that on via social media, your different communication plans, and really help other people out because they're not necessarily going to be in tune to the same things that you are because you're looking at it through a particular lens. So those are the reasons why I think that you should consider building your personal brand. And I'm sure there are a ton more, and I hope that you will share those with the community. Again, we want to build a really strong, supportive community. We want to help each other build our brands. So any experience that you have with that, please share that with us. I hope this was helpful. Well, hello. Before we get started, I want to let you know that I am sitting under my favorite tree at the University of Virginia. Now, for those of you who think it is bizarre that I have a favorite tree, I will just say, please don't judge me. We all have things that we love. I'm entitled to love a tree. It's this beautiful old magnolia tree. It's gorgeous. There's a bench here, and I get to look at my favorite building on ground. So I'm pretty happy with life right now. Today I want to talk to you about how personal your personal brand should be. And I have gotten this question. Someone who is recently getting into the business of helping others manage their reputation and their online identity, things like that, contacted me. We've had lunch, and she said, well, you know, I've Googled you, of course. Everybody's Googling everybody. She said, I Googled you, and I saw on Twitter that you do retweet and tweet about things that you personally believe in, and share your personal opinions. She said, and I'm wondering where the line is, because I don't want to talk about political things that might that because people might not agree with it, and then they might not want to hire me, which is totally valid. The gist of this lecture about how personal your personal brand should be is going to be, it all depends on you and what you want. Okay, bye. See you later. I'm just kidding. But for those of you who are wondering, that's the basic gist of the whole thing. For me personally, it is impossible for me to completely separate the purely professional Kimberly R. Barker with the personal Kimberly Barker. Like many of you, like many people, I have deeply held convictions about certain things, and I personally don't have a problem promoting certain causes or speaking up on behalf of certain things through the social media accounts that I use that are personal professional, such as Twitter. My @KR_Barker Twitter account is mine, though I mostly use it professionally. Now, if I ever want to sign a petition or do something like that, I do not use my University of Virginia email account. I feel like that's something that should come from a personal email account. The Twitter thing is a little trickier, right? Because I mostly use it for work, but then I'm not tweeting on behalf of the University of Virginia or the Health Sciences Library. So it's kind of a gray area. It really depends on you and how personal you want to be. Now, some of you will not struggle with this at all. You won't be like me. I find it very difficult to completely separate and bifurcate myself in that way. There's always going to be some spillover for me. Facebook, I keep private. I don't accept friend requests from just anybody. I'm pretty limited in that, and I keep very careful watch on my privacy settings. Because I do express a lot of my personal opinions there, I don't use it for work. I talk about my son, I post photos of my son, that sort of thing, and that's not up for public consumption. So that's kind of where I draw the line on that. Twitter, again, I use professionally and a little bit personally. So, but for me, again, I'm not somebody who can just kind of chop my two selves in half. There's always going to be some overlap. You have to decide what's right for you. If you are somebody who really values a delineation between those two halves of yourselves, go with that. Please remember that authenticity is the important thing here. And if you are not comfortable bringing more of your personal self into your personal brand, then don't do it, because ultimately your communications and the way that you relate to people through your branding efforts needs to be authentic. And if you're uncomfortable with it, that is going to come through. There's no way that people aren't going to pick up on that. So definitely think about that and think about what makes you comfortable. So I hope that's helpful. I know some of you may have further questions. If you do, please don't hesitate to ask in the forum, and others in the community can help with that, and I'll certainly be glad to address what I can as far as that goes. So I hope wherever you are that you are having a great day, and see you soon. Hey guys, it is a beautiful day here at the University of Virginia, and I could not resist filming outside today. I hope you're okay with a lecture that comes from the great outdoors. I'm actually sitting in one of the gardens designed by Thomas Jefferson, and it is so beautiful. If you ever get the chance to come and visit us here at the University of Virginia, of course, I highly recommend that you do it because it's really wonderful. Today I want to talk a little bit about the Myers-Briggs assessment instrument. I'm not going to get into the history or the origins of it because you can Google that and find out pretty much whatever you want to know about that. What I prefer to talk about is why I think it's valuable. I know that there's definitely a school of thought out there that says that it's junk and it is not scientific, it doesn't do any good, and I respectfully disagree with that. The value to me of the Myers-Briggs assessment is what it gives the individual. For instance, I am an INFJ, and I'm gonna link to that, and you can read the description. But trust me, spot on. Actually, eerily spot on. It's so accurate. But what I like about that is that it gives you insight into yourself, because I think you'll find, and let me know if I'm wrong, please. Don't hesitate to tell me if you find that that's not at all accurate about me. I'd love to hear from you. But I think what you'll find is when you start reading the description after you've taken the test, is that you'll go, oh yeah, that's true. That's true too. Oh my gosh, come and read this. I think you'll find that it's really accurate. And because this part of the course is devoted to creating infrastructure for your brand, knowing yourself is really, really important. Understanding why you have the reactions that you do, understanding why you dislike some things and like other things, very important. Because remember, my goal for you for this class is that not only do you figure out what work that you want to do and what gifts you have to give to the world and the best ways to promote that, but just as important, I believe, is the idea of figuring out what you don't want to do. And I think that understanding what you want out of your life, professionally and otherwise, will help guide you in the right direction. And I firmly believe that the Myers-Briggs is part of this. I'll tell you a funny story. So I first took this instrument when I was maybe 13 or 14, so about 100 years ago. And back then, the world was very extrovert-centric. Like, you just wanted to be an extrovert. I think the world has changed a little bit. I think it's a little more open to introverts now, but back in the day, it was not like that at all. So, of course, I threw the test so that I would end up as an extrovert. And I think that's what people expected of me. So I did it. So side note, yes, you can totally cheat on this test and get basically whatever outcome you want. I don't recommend it because you don't even have to tell anybody what your assessment is. Well, tell me. Just tell me, but you don't have to tell anybody else. But I think it's really important for you to be honest about it because, again, this is all about your infrastructure. So anyway, I decided that I must be an extrovert, so I was choosing all the things that would indicate I was an extrovert, even though I was like, oh, I hate that. I hate it when people show up to my house unexpectedly. I just hate that. But I chose, oh no, I really like it when people show up at my house unexpectedly, and I hate that. So I threw the test, and years later, I think I took it again when I was in my mid-20s, and by then I just didn't even care what people thought. I was like, no, I gotta be me. So I took it again and I got the INFJ, and reading the description, it was almost like slipping on a warm fuzzy bathrobe. It was like, oh yes, that's so accurate, that's exactly right, that's me. And so it really helped me understand and process the way that I navigate the world. Things weren't such a mystery to me anymore. And so whenever I have to go do something, for instance, be in a big crowd of people, introverts, that's not really our thing. Because you see, introverts and extroverts, that really doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you're a shy person. I don't have a shy bone in my body. I have traveled all over this world, and I can have a conversation with anybody. Even if I don't speak the local language, I can successfully have a conversation. So I'm not shy at all. But being an introvert means that you process things in a certain way and that you do not like to be in crowds because they drain your energy. And I'm kind of generalizing here, but you'll get the idea once you take it. Extroverts, on the other hand, love to process things in a crowd, and they love to be in a big crowd of people because being around all those people supplies them with a lot of energy, whereas to an introvert, it drains me. I can do it, but I'm exhausted at the end of it. If I have to teach more than 2 classes in a day, I'm done. Like, there's nothing left for me to give, and I'm just, so knowing that is really helpful to you, I think, because you can understand more the type of work that you want to take on. So I think that's super, super important. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you take it. I'd love to hear your results if you want to share them. And I'd love to know if what your experience is with Myers-Briggs, if you too cheated on the Myers-Briggs assessment at some point in your life, to throw it either way. I think those stories are really fascinating. So I hope that your day is just as beautiful wherever you are, and I hope it was helpful. Hello, learners. Grab your refreshing beverage and get ready to think about those three little words. Not I love you, another three little words. These three little words will become crucial to your brand's identity, whether or not you share them with anybody else in the world. They'll become so important because they'll serve as your guiding principle. And one of your assignments, as you probably have already seen, is to write a mission statement. And you'll use these three words that you choose to form the foundation of your mission statement. So they're going to be very, very important. And with all the other work we're doing right now, it's important that you take your time, but also try and react to it spontaneously. For instance, when you think of yourself and your brand and what you have to offer the world, what three words come to mind? Usually that's a pretty good guess as to what your core values are. Now, when I did this exercise, because of course I do all of these as well for myself, because I give such good advice, so I take it, my three words were honesty, creativity, and integrity. And I want to talk a little bit about honesty and integrity. They don't necessarily mean the same thing. I think a lot of people equate them in their mind as being the same thing, but integrity just means that I will do my best to be an honorable person at all times. And so that's my integrity. I'll always strive to do what's right. Honesty is not necessarily something associated with politeness, which I think people often think it is, but honesty and truthfulness indicate that even if it's news that I think my client is not going to want to hear, I'm going to tell them anyway because I have a duty to be truthful with them in my work. I think my boss gets tired of hearing me say this sometimes, but what I tell him is, if I disagree with you, I have to tell you because part of what you're paying me for is my opinion. So I think it's very honest, very honest. I think it's very good to be very honest with your clients, your boss, whomever you're working on behalf of. So again, honesty, integrity, not necessarily the same thing, but they both serve very clear purposes in my mind for me and my brand. The other one is creativity. This one's a little harder to pin down sometimes, but for me, the way creativity manifests in my work is that I don't necessarily think about or approach a problem the way most people would, and that can throw people off occasionally. But it's good because sometimes come into a situation and I'll look at it in a way that perhaps nobody else has. So that's something that I think that I bring to the table. And so I think that those three words really sum up me and my brand. And though they don't necessarily appear in my mission statement, which again I'm going to share with you, they do form the background of it. I think that when you read it, you'll have that feel for it. You'll see that those words sort of infuse it. So sort of like when you're making a tea or a soup, you may not necessarily know that there's a certain ingredient in that recipe, but somehow it informs the background of that tea or that soup. And so it makes it better. You don't necessarily think, oh, there's ginger in here or, some other ingredient. But there's something about having it in the mix that really informs and infuses it and makes it a richer mixture. So I hope that analogy makes sense. If not, ask me about it and I'll try to clarify that a little bit. So again, my three little words, honesty, integrity, and creativity. And I really want to know what your three are. And if you plan on sharing these, because done right, it could be a great slogan for your brand. But it's up to you, but I'd love to hear what you decide. And I hope this was helpful. Hello, learners. I want to talk about authenticity, and I hope you want to listen about authenticity and then go to the forums and talk about authenticity some more. What is it? Well, it concerns the truthfulness of origins and commitment, and it's associated with sincerity. Now, authenticity in terms of your brand, and given that definition, mean that your brand should always be a truthful reflection of your values. Remember your 3 keywords that you had to come up with for your brand? Those 3 words should be reflected throughout your brand. That should be, you should have chosen 3 words that had a lot of true meaning for you and what you want to give to the world, and those should be your guide. Now, I want to clear up one thing that I think is important. Authenticity doesn't necessarily mean politeness. I think a lot of the time people equate the two, and that's not entirely accurate. If your authentic self is that you're super sarcastic, well, that's authentic. Now, just because, we've all heard like kind of mean people use the excuse of, well, that's just how it is, and I'm a truth teller, and if they don't like the truth, I'm just keeping it real. Well, that's super. Thanks for keeping it real. But you also want to present your best self. Now, there are peer professionals in my field who kind of have objections to the work that I do with reputation management and also probably with branding, because they see it as a form of fakeness and as a way to cover bad things up. For the record, I do not teach those techniques, and I do not help people do any of those things. I tend to see reputation management and managing your digital presence, which we'll get into in later modules, as a way to present your best self. In the same way that I would not want to meet someone for the first time when I was sweaty and nasty in my gardening clothes. Hello, I smell really bad right now. Nice to meet you. That's the same way that I would not want to present myself with the digital equivalent. We all want to put our best foot forward because, as the saying goes, you never have a second chance to make a first impression. So I just think of it as putting your best foot forward. So again, it doesn't necessarily mean being polite, but I would say that keep in mind that your email is very shareable and it can live forever. I'll give you an example out of my own life. A few years ago, earlier in my career, I was appointed to a national board. And some of the current board members apparently were not really happy about me as a choice, and so expressed those feelings in an email that was supposed to go only to current board members, but ended up going to the entire membership of the organization. Yes. So you can imagine probably how I felt when I opened this email, and it kind of exploded in my face. It really hurt my feelings, and I don't expect everybody to like me. I'm fine with that, and I'm certainly not here to dictate how people should feel about me or anything else. But I would urge you to think about how, if you're going to email something or you're going to, tweet something, do think about the effect that might have on another person, and just kind of put that through the filter of your 3 keywords. Again, you want to be authentic. And sometimes I think when we get upset or experience other negative emotions, those kind of tend to drive us. And I think if we have those 3 keywords as like speed bumps to kind of slow us down when that rush of emotion is carrying us forward, and we kind of bump up against that first keyword and it slows us down a little. We bump over the second one, it slows us down a little more. And by the time you get to the third one, it's maybe slowed down your emotions enough that you can stop and think about whether or not this is authentic to you, and how if you want that to become part of your digital identity. So think about that. Please go to the forums, go to Twitter or your country's equivalent, and share your thoughts about authenticity. I'd really like to know what you think about it and what you think about how it affects your brand and any experiences that you've had with this. I hope this has been helpful. Hi there. Today I want to talk about the importance of having a high quality photo of yourself associated with your brand. Now, back in the day, in the dark ages of the internet, common wisdom had it that you did not put your real photograph or your real name out on the web because people would fly across the country to murder you. So that just wasn't done. We've come full circle now in that we know that if we are building a brand and we are trying to build authenticity, that we do want our real names out there and we do want our photos out there. Using screen names and avatars have been associated with anonymity, and anonymity on the web does not always breed the best kind of behavior. So now it's in fact encouraged to have a good quality photo of yourself out there. Another reason I encourage it is because humans are visual creatures and they are more likely to respond to your brand if they see a photo of a person. Study after study, particularly associated with social media, has shown that people are more likely to engage somehow with a post, like for instance on Facebook, liking it, sharing it, if there is a photo involved. Another reason you want to have a good quality photo of yourself out there is because it gives you an opportunity to further your brand. Now, we have only to look to history to see a grand master of personal branding, and that was Queen Elizabeth I. Now, full disclosure, I am a Queen Elizabeth I fangirl. So much to like about her. Some not so good stuff, too, but as far as branding goes, she was an absolute genius. And I'm going to provide a link to one of her portraits. And she definitely used portraiture to further her brand. The one I'm going to link to is the Ditchley portrait, and you will see all kinds of symbols. There was the sun on her right and the moon on her left, or maybe it was vice versa. And she's standing on a map of the world, and she has a pelican brooch. And the folklore at the time held that the pelican actually pecked its own breast to draw forth blood, and it used that blood to nurture its young. Right? Brilliant. What a great symbol for a monarch. So totally brilliant. I'll link to that. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting that you have a portrait painted of yourself or go to all the trouble to have all these symbols associated with you. If you want to, it could be a fun exercise, but it's not necessary. But I'm just saying that you need to think about it and be intentional in what you're wearing, how you're standing, what you're doing in the photo. If you want to convey that you are a very serious, cool, professional, you want to think about having very good posture, you want to think about a certain stance, you want to be in at least business casual. If you are more interested in projecting approachability, perhaps you don't have to be dressed so formally or standing so formally. And believe me, I realize that being photographed is difficult for many, many people. I am one of them. In fact, I know hundreds of people, and probably 2 of them enjoy being photographed. So if you are someone who really hates to be photographed, you have all my sympathy, and you are not alone, but it really, really is necessary. Because again, everything we're doing in this class is meant to further your brand. So if it wasn't going to help your brand, I would not suggest that you do it. So, just think about that, consider it. Now, the other thing is that just as you don't have to have a portrait painted of yourself, though wouldn't that be nice, you don't even have to go to a professional photographer if you can't afford the expense or for whatever other reason. The quality of cell phone cameras is very good these days, and it is possible to get a nice looking shot of yourself just with a cell phone camera. But a few tips: just be sure that the lighting is good. Lighting is so important. You want to make sure that your face isn't in shadow, and you want to be sure there's nothing covering your face, good lighting, but the lighting shouldn't be so bright that you're like a Nosferatu, like shrinking back from the sun. That's probably not what you want to promote as your brand either. Also, posture. My posture is very bad. I tend to slump and be all casual, but my ballet teacher used to say, imagine that there is a rod going from the top of your head down your spine and shoulders back, and this is how our posture should be. So what I find, and the reason I want to give you these tips is, it's sort of like if you have a script, if you're kind of shy and you're meeting new people, if you have a script in your head of what you're going to say, stick out your hand, hello, my name is blah, 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 and I do this. I think that's helpful in the same way that I like to have a script when I'm going to have a photo taken. You know, I know shoulders back, rod through back, smile. Although that looks crazy, so don't do that kind of smile. But again, good lighting, good posture, be intentional with your clothing, what's in the background, where you are, what kind of setting, just whatever is going to promote your brand and further your values as a brand. That's another opportunity to promote that. So go to the forums, find me on social media. I would love to hear your experience with being photographed. If you're someone who hates it, or if you're somebody who loves it, please, by all means, share that with us, and maybe you can give us some tips for how it can be a more enjoyable process. So I hope this was helpful. Hey guys, I am so excited to be coming to you today from one of my favorite places on grounds at the University of Virginia. I think it is one of the coolest spaces. It's called Open Grounds, and it is a collaborative workspace that is meant to encourage interdisciplinary collaboration, which is so neat. And you can come in here. They have all kinds of cool technology. You can see a little bit behind me, but they have monitors and they have support, and you can come in and have meetings here, and some faculty teach classes here, but it's a really cool space. And so I'm excited that I get to be out of my office and working in here today. Today's lecture, what I want to address is how often you should revisit your 3 words, your mission statement, and your photo. We talk about the fact that we need to address other things in having to do with our personal brand, and I feel like it's really important to address these things. In my opinion, you need to revisit your 3 words at least annually. That is really important, just to periodically check in with yourself. We talk about the fact that with your board of directors, if you can meet with them annually, just to keep your goals in mind, and if you didn't meet your goals, or if something changed and you changed direction, having that kind of opportunity where you are accountable to other people is quite helpful, because it keeps you on track. When you know that you're going to be accountable to other people and that you're going to be having to make this report, you're going to be thinking, I think, a bit more mindfully about what you're doing and how you're going about it. So for your 3 words, I would say at least annually you want to revisit those. Now, this may not be true for everybody. Remember, this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. This is supposed to be personal branding, personal to you. And so that may not be true for you. You may pick 3 keywords and stick with them for the rest of your career, and that may work out great for you. Other people, you may need to change them every 6 months. It just depends on you, on your work, on where life takes you, because I can tell you personally that you think you're going in one direction and suddenly life has other plans and you're going in a different direction. Now, my 3 words were honesty, integrity, and creativity. And those are sort of what I think of as being bedrock words. They're not super trendy, and they're things that I'll always have, I hope. And I think things that will always be important to me. Honesty, integrity, and creativity. And I know we've talked, if you haven't seen the lecture on how personal should your personal brand be, take a look at that. But this kind of ties into that, because my 3 words are also, they're not just for me professionally, they're for me personally as well, because those are very, very important things to me. I want to be honest, I want to have integrity, and I want to be creative in my personal life and in my family life and all those other areas that are non-work related. So to me, those are sort of, as I've said before, bedrock words that I can see fitting into my life no matter what kind of work I might do. If my job changes, I think those 3 things will be kind of classic. If this were a style quiz, those would be the classic words as opposed to trendy. But it just depends, and it's going to depend on the nature of your work. So those are things to keep in mind. So
annually, every 6 months. If you feel like you're on the verge of a major change, that's a great time to revisit your 3 words. Same thing with your mission statement. All of these things that we're doing should be living documents. These are not things that you can do once and forget them. These are things that you should constantly be revisiting and keeping in mind, and they should be your kind of your lodestones, your guiding star, if you will. And just make sure that they are continue to be applicable to your work, because if they're not, and it's no longer what you want out of your personal brand or your career, then you need to change that. It's that simple. One word about your photo. We've talked about the importance of a really good quality photo of you. Again, this is not how attractive you are. This is just having, it's another way to further your brand. How you're dressed, if you're dressed kind of casually, that says something about you. Your surroundings say something about you, but we've talked about all that before. But what I would say about how often you should update your photo is if you experience a major change in your appearance, you should update your photo. Particularly if you're going to be meeting people whom you don't know, and the only way that they know what you look like is a photo of you on the web. So for instance, if I cut my hair really short and dyed it bright purple or went bright blonde, I would need to update my photo, because the last thing you want to do is show up to a meeting and have them you don't want to start off the meeting with them being thrown off balance because you look completely different from your photo. That is not the way to start off a meeting, because that sort of can make people feel very uncomfortable, and they're like, well, if this is different, what else is different? So you always want your photo on the web to match your current appearance. So just keep that in mind. Me, I'll probably never cut my hair because I never want to have a photo taken ever again. So, I think I'm serious about that too. Anyway, please let me know, let everybody else know in the forums how you feel about this, if you think this is a good schedule, and if you've done some of this, how often you feel like updating worked for you. We'd love to hear from you, and I hope it was helpful.
Hello, learners. The time has come to talk about mission statements. And to provide some context and setting for this discussion, I want to talk about a poem by an American poet whose name is Mary Oliver. And many of you have probably heard of this poem. It's called The Summer Day. And this poem kind of went viral and captured a lot of people's attention and admiration because of the last two lines. And those are, tell me, what do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? It's a really good question. And I like to quote that in order to get you thinking about your mission statement, because, I mean, could it be any more perfect? I think that is a fantastic way to frame this discussion. What do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? It's a good question, and I firmly believe that everybody would be fantastic at work if they could do work that they loved and that they were good at. We don't all have that opportunity due to different circumstances. I happen to be somebody who's fairly lucky. I really do enjoy the work that I do. And my hope is through this course, many of you will be able to build your brand and present yourself in such a way that gains you a lot of opportunities. And I believe that the mission statement is a critical part of your infrastructure. So I want you to think about, if you'll bring back into your mind your 3 little words that you came up with that describe your brand. And remember, we talked about how you don't necessarily need to share those 3 words with anybody else. They can be like your quiet, abiding principles that only you know about. Mine were honesty, integrity, and creativity. And I'm going to also share my mission statement with you. The mission statement should not be more than 3 sentences. It should be something that you can memorize, that you can share with people. Again, it's up to you. If you are planning to create a blog or some other sort of website to promote your brand, your business, it's not a bad idea to have your mission statement or some statement of purpose on your website. So I always like to say I'm letting people know exactly what they're getting into right from the beginning, so there's no mistake there. But again, if you choose to keep that to yourself, as long as you're using it again as your set of filters, because knowing what kind of work you don't want to do is just as important as knowing what kind of work you do want to do. So keep that in mind. So I want to bring up my mission statement. Bear with me while I bring it up, and I want to share it with you. My mission statement. My abiding purpose is to help all those whom it is within my power to help. I will use the gifts endowed to me, my heart, my brain, and my humor in service to others, in a spirit of compassion, and with the hope of more deeply understanding those with whom I share this world. So that's my mission statement. It may be a little cheesy on, overall, but I'm kind of a cheesy person. But just because it's cheesy doesn't mean it's sincere. That's honestly how I want to order my life. And it was very helpful exercise to me to write that mission statement, because when you have to get something down in no more than 3 sentences, it doesn't leave you with a lot of wiggle room. You have to cut straight to the chase, and it really does help you figure out what your core values are and what you really want to be doing in this world. And hopefully figuring out your 3 words and then writing your mission statement. Again, all of this is just the idea of building that infrastructure of your brand, so that when you go out to promote yourself and your brand, you can do it very clearly because you've done all this work. You know who you are, you know what your values are, and you'll be able to easily communicate those. So let me know in the forums. One of your assignments is to write your mission statement. So write that, get that posted, and share your stories. Always interested in hearing from you. I hope this helped. Learners, the time has come to talk about choosing a board of directors. Now, just like we discussed when it was time to choose your 3 words that represent your brand and to write your mission statement, your board of directors is not something that you have to share or make public. You could have a little file in your mind with your board of directors, and you've never told these people that they're your board of directors. I don't really think that's the best way to go about that. I think you would get a much more productive board if they knew they were on it. I don't know, it's a crazy notion. But if you just are too shy, or you just think it would be super awkward to let people know that they're sitting on your board of directors for your brand, then you don't have to tell them. However, I would urge you to consider actually telling people, issuing them an invitation to be on your board and explain it to them, because they would be more likely to be able to help you if they know what's going on. Plus, it would just be immensely flattering if somebody came to you and said, you know what, I really admire you, and I'd like for you to be someone that I know I can call on in order to get some help with certain projects or life decisions. So there are 3 things that you need to consider when you're choosing your 4 board members, and I do recommend 4. I think that is enough to give you a wide range of opinions without being too many, which would get kind of cumbersome. So I would recommend choosing at least 4 people, and they should have these 3 qualities. Number 1, it should be someone that you admire and respect. And it can be that you have personal respect for how they live their lives, or you have admiration for the success they've had, however you define success, whether that's professional success or personal success, but someone whom you admire and respect. People who care deeply about you and want you to succeed. That is a crucial piece. That's the second one, and that's very important. These need to be people who are invested in you as a person and who care about you. And the last one, which is also extremely important, is that these need to be people who will be honest with you. You do not want yes people on your board of directors. You don't want people who will not tell you things because they're afraid of hurting your feelings or because they don't want to offend you. You need people who care deeply enough about you to be honest. We've talked before about how honesty and politeness are not always necessarily linked. They don't have to be people who take joy in pointing things out to you to make you miserable. I'm certainly not saying that. But you need people who care enough about you to tell you when you're about to make a mistake, or at least what they perceive as a mistake. If you go to someone and you say, I'm thinking about making this move or taking this job, but I'm not really sure what to do, and they know you so well, and they know that this position would not be a good fit for you, but they aren't willing to speak up because they don't want to offend you, or maybe the new job would pay you a lot more, but they feel like you wouldn't be a good fit for it, but they don't want to tell you because they don't want you to later blame them. You really need to have people in your life who care enough about you to be honest with you. So again, when you're choosing your 4 board members, they should have the following 3 qualities. Someone whom you respect and admire for whatever reasons, personally, professional success, however you define that. People who care deeply about you and your success, and people who are willing to be honest with you. So let me know what you come up with, and it's up to you again. If you want to tell people and formally invite them to be a part of your board, maybe get this board together once a year, take everybody out to lunch, or take everybody out to lunch individually, or it could be kind of fun to invite everybody to a restaurant for your board meeting for your brand once a year and check in. And that also is a great way to hold yourself accountable. If you know you have to make a presentation to your board of directors and say, this is what I've accomplished in the last year. This is what I'm looking towards, working towards in the future. That's a great way to hold yourself accountable and make sure that you have realistic goals that you're working towards. So figure out who your 4 board members are and report it in the forums, and reach out and share, and let me know if you've ever tried this idea before and what you think the pros and cons are. I'd love to hear from you. I hope this was helpful. Hello, learners. I hope that you have your refreshing beverage handy, because today's topic requires refreshing beverages. We are talking about a big topic. We are talking about social media platforms today and how to choose the best one for your product, for your brand. Now, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of different social media platforms out there. And in the readings, you'll find links to a couple of different articles that will give you overviews, not only to the most common ones in Western countries, but also internationally, in case you are living in a non-Western country or you want to promote your brand in those countries. I think you'll find those helpful. Let me know in the forum and on social media if you do, or if you don't. That's good feedback too. What I want to focus on in today's lecture is impressing upon you the hugeness of the world of social media and why it's really important to choose the best platform for your particular product. If you are, for instance, a visual artist, you might choose to promote your art on Tumblr or even on Pinterest. Those platforms are designed for visual pieces. That's their whole thing. They are meant to be visual. So I'm not saying that you couldn't also be on Twitter, but because remember we've talked about Twitter and how Twitter's a fishhook. So you could certainly use Twitter to catch somebody's attention and have a link embedded in your tweet that goes back to your Tumblr or goes back to a Pinterest board that showcases your work as a visual artist. That's a completely appropriate strategy. I don't recommend that you try to be on more than 3 platforms. And actually, in most cases, I think that 2 platforms should probably be the maximum that you're working on, particularly if it's just you, if you're not part of a bigger team, if you're a one-person shop, because you don't want to get into trying to feed so much social media, because it is a lot of work, and there are different ways that you can lessen your burden. You can use automation software. You can certainly schedule time to do these things so that you know exactly when you're going to do it. You're going to update 2 to 3 times a week, but you don't want your content to be stale. You don't want somebody to go to your Twitter profile page and see that you haven't tweeted in 6 months. that doesn't give the right impression because you want to look engaged and informed. So I really recommend that if you're a one-person shop, 2 social media platforms are really the maximum of what you want to do. But Facebook might be a good choice for you for a variety of businesses. Facebook, not so popular with the teenagers because all the old people like me and parents, like teenagers, their parents are on Facebook and they don't want to be on Facebook anymore as much. But it's still overall a really great platform for business, for your brand. Some of you might have seen the personal branding Facebook page. And I know that my learners cover a vast expanse of demographics. You know, we have people of all ages there. And Facebook still, I think, has a lot of cross appeal. So Facebook might want to be one because it allows you to post pictures, post links, do polls, set up events. So there's a lot of benefits, certainly, to having a Facebook page for your brand. But there are a lot of options, and you don't want to overburden yourself with trying to feed too many platforms. If one of the keys for you will be to identify your audience. Who's your target audience? Are you does your business mostly focus on moms with young children? If so, you need to find out which platforms are most popular with that demographic. That's how you're going to want to do it. If it's teenagers, if you are marketing your skills towards teenagers or you sell a product that teenagers would be most interested in, again, you need to do a little bit of homework. I've provided some links, but you might want to do some research on your own to find out which platforms are most popular with specific demographics. I think that'll be a very helpful strategy as well for you as you're choosing your social media platforms. Those of you who are a little bit further along, maybe when you started this course, if you have already established yourself on various social media platforms and you've had a lot of success or maybe not so much success, if you would like to share your stories, the community would be I speak for the community. The community would be very interested to hear those. And of course, I'd be happy to share my experiences as well. So get out there, do your homework. Look at a few of the articles that I posted and get back in touch and let me know if they were helpful to you or if there are other great ones that you find that you would recommend. So as usual, I hope this was helpful. Hello, learners. I'm in the mood to talk about Twitter today, and I hope that you're in the mood to listen about Twitter. Now, if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're not familiar with Twitter, and I hope to give you a good overview and some reasons why it may be a good fit for you in promoting your brand. If you already know about Twitter and you're watching this video, I can only assume it's because I am super amusing and engaging. Thank you. You're so sweet. So Twitter, or whatever your country's version of Twitter is it's a communication media that limits you to 140 characters per message, which in Twitter's case is called a tweet. Now, some people always question, how much real communication can you get done in 140 characters? And I can see their point. I think it really takes getting into Twitter and following some people to figure all that out. So if you want to get into Twitter, you'll need to make an account. And you want to choose your username, which is called a handle. And all handles have an @ sign in front of them. For instance, I am at @KR_Barker on Twitter. And with all things, remember, everything we're doing in this course is going towards thinking about your brand and establishing your brand. Think about what handle will best promote a message about your brand. I think it's great to have your name out there. You can never have your name out there enough, so I like to use my name. But if there's something else that you would like to use, like you would never use this, like no person would ever use this, but @ComputerWhiz. It's a terrible example. I'm sorry. But you get the idea. Your name or something that communicates something about your brand. So you first will create that. Then you can... There's a search box at the top of every Twitter page, and you can search for people who are rock stars in your field, and you can follow them. There's a little blue follow button. You click on them, and you can start seeing their tweets in your feed. You can, in the search box, search for particular topics, and those will pop up, and you can see a lot of times they have hashtags. Now, back in the day, a hashtag was used to indicate a number, but in this modern world of ours, it has come to mean a topic on Twitter. So if you are writing a tweet on a particular topic, for instance, if I want to write a tweet about 3D printing, I would put hashtag and then 3D printing. And one thing that Twitter does that I think is pretty helpful is once you type a hashtag and start typing the whatever your topic is, like if I typed #3, it would pop up a list of suggestions. So 3D printing, 3D printed, that kind of thing, and you can choose your hashtag. And don't fill your tweet with too many hashtags, but do fill it enough to get your message out there so that anybody else searching for that hashtag is likely to find your tweet. So that's a good thing to do. So because it is so short in nature, limited to 140 characters, I like to think of Twitter as a fishhook. It's a small instrument that you use to lure people back to your boat and eat them. No, I'm just kidding about that last part. But I do like the analogy of a fishhook because a tweet is a small thing that you're using to hopefully hook people and take them back to your content. For instance, I have a blog, and if I write a piece on 3D printing that is 2 pages long, there's no way I could fit all of that into Twitter. But if I use a tweet to put in a link that heads back to my blog and I hashtag it 3D printing, anybody looking for 3D printing is likely to find that and be taken back to my blog. So I'm actually reeling people in to bigger pieces of content. So if you've had a particular experience with Twitter or whatever your country's version is, if you love it, if you hate it, I would love to hear from the community, share stories, and particularly for those folks who may not be as familiar with Twitter. If you decide to sign up and want to lurk for a while, that is totally fine. Lurking basically means that you aren't creating content, you're just reading other people's content. That's a great way to figure out what Twitter is and if it's for you. Again, all of these tools that I'm telling you about are to just give you an idea of what's going to work for you. Not everything is going to work for everybody. So if you try Twitter and it doesn't work for you and it just doesn't fit you and you find it cumbersome, drop it. Don't use it. Go on to the next thing. But if you do decide to check it out, please tweet at me at @KR_Barker and check in with me on social media, and I would love to see what your handle is and tell me what you think about it. I'd be very interested to hear that. I hope you found this helpful.
Well, hello there, everybody. This is a special edition video. Should be considered a supplement. If you already know about Twitter, you're using Twitter, or you've decided you hate Twitter and you don't want to use Twitter, please do not feel that you have to watch this video. This is just something I wanted to do for people who maybe are not as familiar with Twitter or who maybe are still making up their minds about whether or not they want to use Twitter. I have navigated to the Twitter homepage. And here you've got your sign up button and your login button. We'll get to that a little bit later. But when you land on the Twitter homepage, you will see a series of tabs, and it defaults you to the featured tab. So these are going to be like the big stories, big things that are going on in the world, big things that are happening on Twitter, that kind of thing. You've also got options for news, sports, music, so on and so on. Don't miss the search tab, which I have just clicked on, and you can use this search tab exactly the way that you would use a normal search engine search tab. And I'm going to do a search for cute animals because that is just the kind of person that I am. Now again, you'll see a series of tabs across the top, and you'll see that top is actually one of those tabs, and this is going to be like the big results for whatever your search term is. If you want to hone in and find accounts to follow, it will also match
the accounts that are the best fit for your search term. So I did cute animals, and so it's matched me up with cute animal pics, cute animals, and you can see they all have different handles. Now your username on Twitter is called a handle, and you'll notice that they all start with @ so @cuteanimalsbaby, @cuteanimalpic, @cuteexplosion. Yes, my heart is basically about to explode. I can't even stand this. So you can actually click on one of these accounts, and then you can scroll through and see the different tweets that this account has put out and decide if it's something that you would like to follow. And if it is, then you can easily click the follow button. Now, you have to have an account, and if you were to click on follow, it would prompt you then to either create an account or to log in. I want to go back to the home page for a second, and I want to go back to the search bar. And I showed you that you could use it simply as like you would a regular search engine. But you'll notice in the example that they give you, this little hash mark that's there. And that's actually, the hash mark back in the day just indicated a number, but now in our modern world, it means usually a search term that you're going to find on Twitter or some way to designate something in a particular way. So I am going to put my hashtag there, and then I'm going to use the search term that I search for a lot on Twitter, and it's 3D printing. So again, you'll see I have my tabs across the top, and if I go to accounts, you will see that it's giving me the top accounts that are related to 3D printing. And again, if I were logged in, I could just click follow, and that would give me the ability to follow and see what a lot of these folks are doing and what they think is important. Another thing that you may have noticed, I just want to point out to you, is trends. So this is usually on the left side of the page, and these are trending hashtags, and some people are mixed in there, and also some different ideas. So now what I want to show you is how to get a Twitter account of your own. If you go to sign up, you're going to be prompted to give your full name, phone or email, a password, and then that will, once you click sign up, that will begin the process, and you'll have to choose your Twitter handle. I'll go ahead and log in so you can see mine. And it is @KR_Barker. And I'm going to log in. So this, when you log in, nope, this is a shared computer. I do not want to save my password. So it logs me into and sends me to my Twitter feed. So these are the results that I am seeing based on the accounts that I follow. So if you want to see, one of the things that I like that I think is very important for branding for using Twitter is to go to your profile. Here you have the opportunity to do a couple of things. You get to choose a cover photo, which again, remember, all of this has to do with promoting your brand. Now, I love nature. Is there anything particularly related to my brand about these birch trees with a beautiful sun behind them? Probably not. But I love birch trees and I love nature, and I fell in love with that, and I wanted to use it as my cover photo. You also have the opportunity to have a photo of yourself, and we've talked about this before, and I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to have a headshot done by a professional photographer. They offered it to everybody in the health system, and it was a great opportunity. I hate being photographed, but I really needed a good quality professional photograph. Then you have the opportunity to write a little bio about yourself, just to give people an idea about you. And this doesn't have to be purely professional. If your brand is a little more relaxed, such as mine is, then I don't mind telling people that I love the show Firefly, that I love tea, that I love cashmere. all kinds of things about myself. I don't mind doing that. But what you're getting here is the idea that I work with emerging technology in healthcare, and that's really important. You have the option to put your location and to link to another account that you have. This is my professional blog, and if you link on that, you will see that. And you can also see how many tweets I've done, how many people I'm following, how many followers I have. You can see a list of things that I favorited and any lists that I've created. It also gives you the opportunity to see your stuff in different ways. So you can scroll down and see things that I have either tweeted or retweeted, and then also the opportunity to see photos and videos. So that is pretty much it. Now, Twitter is always trying to help you. One thing I'd add is Twitter's trying to help you find more accounts to follow and more people to follow. So it is kind of monitoring what you're doing and what you're looking at, what you're retweeting, in the sense that it is trying to gather information in order to better help you find accounts to follow and that sort of thing. And that's why you see these over here. And also you've got your trends again, so you can see that. So up here would be notifications. When you find out that someone has followed you, that will show up here. If you are mentioned in a tweet that somebody else sends out, that will give you a notification. So that's another thing to look at. You've got moments. Again, these are things that might be of interest to you. And then you've got messages. And messages are not things that are public. They're not things that other people are going to see. Well, I hope that was helpful. Please give me some feedback based on this demo if you weren't really familiar with Twitter. Let me know if you think it would be helpful to you. And if there were questions that I did not address in this video, please do let me know, and I would be happy to answer them or help you out. All right, hope it was
Hey guys, today we're going to talk about how to know whether you should use a free platform for your long form home on the web or when it's time to buy something like a domain name or create your own website. The short answer, as in most of my lectures, is depends on what you want to do. You can turn it off now. I'm just kidding. That joke is getting so old. I'm sorry. So basically there are a couple of ways to know whether or not you can make do with a free platform like a WordPress or a Blogger or something like that. Number one, if you are self-employed, you need your own website. They are relatively inexpensive now. They're really not bad, especially if you buy a domain name in combination with a web hosting service. And a lot of the tools now are very easy. You can do the work yourself. So just right off the bat, my advice to you, if you have your own business, you're self-employed, you need your own website. And you're going to need the functionality that a free platform can't provide you. Number two, I would say if you have a day job, if you're fully employed somewhere else, but you have a business on the side that you're serious about, I think you should have your own website along with your own domain name. That sends the signal to people that even though this is not your day job, that you take it very seriously, that you're committed to it. And again, it's furthering your brand. It's another way for you to be out there and come up in search results. Never a bad thing. And again, I just want to emphasize that a lot of these options are not very expensive at all. And of course, because it's business related, in some countries, you can actually use it as a business expense. So there's that to consider. The third thing, the third way to tell if you need your own website as opposed to a free site is, do you want one? Is that something that you want to put the time and interest into? I think that for a lot of people, if you are an academic, for instance, who just wants a place to blog and get your thoughts out there in a non-scholarly way, but you just want to keep your name out there and keep putting your thoughts out there, your opinions out there, a free hosted long form home is fine. Even a Tumblr would probably be fine because you can do some text there, although Tumblr really is more for visual stuff. So if you're a student and you are just starting out and you are looking to graduate at the end of your course of study with some kind of online portfolio that you want to have something that when you're Googled, because you know you'll be Googled. If you have learned nothing else, please understand at this point that if somebody is thinking about going on a date with you, if they're thinking about hiring you, if they're thinking about asking you to babysit their child, they're going to be Googling you. So for students, how great is it to end your course of study, or even during your course of study when you're applying for jobs or applying for internships, if you have this digital home on the web that describes your interests, things you're passionate about, and you have a living document that demonstrates your interest in your particular discipline. That is something to think about. But I really think a free home at that point for you is fine. You're not going to need that much functionality. But if it's something that you want to do and you have the resources to invest in it, it's not a bad idea. I never think owning your own domain name is a bad idea. For me, when I decided that I needed to start a consulting business for reasons that I don't want to get into here, I knew that if I were going to do it, I really did need to own my own domain name, and I did need to have a website because I didn't want it to be presented as, well, this is just kind of this thing I do on the side when I have time. I wanted people who were interested in hiring me and needed the benefit of my skills and experience to feel confident that I was a professional and that I really was dedicated to helping them, even though it wasn't something that I do as my quote-unquote day job. That even though it is something that I do on the side, they can expect the same level of professionalism. And the gravitas of a website does give that to you. So those are just some things to think about. As usual, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you own your own domain name, if you have a website, if you don't, if you've been happy with your free long-form home on the web, please let us know. And if you have questions, if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking that maybe it's time to make that jump from free to paid and you'd like to discuss it with others, that's what we're here for, guys. We're not just a class, we're a community. So take advantage of that and ask your questions. And those of you with answers, don't hesitate to answer, and let's help each other out, okay? So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I hope that this was helpful. Hello! Today I want to talk to you about the importance of establishing an update schedule for your social media. Now, I have already talked to you about why I believe you shouldn't choose more than 3 social media platforms. If you still have questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. You can go back and review the other lecture about that. But particularly if you are a one-person shop, you don't want more than 3 social media platforms to deal with. And part of that ties back into the update schedule that I'm going to suggest. I think that you should update at least twice a week, but perhaps no more than 5 times a week. Now, having said that, you have to look at the context of the platform that you're looking at and also your content. Obviously, if you have planned to update twice and you've done that, and then some piece of breaking news happens or some really cool something or other happens. There's so many delightful possibilities, I can't imagine. But imagine something really cool and historic happens that is relevant to the work that you do. You certainly don't want to not share it if you've already shared 5 things. You want to be relevant. So I guess what I'm saying is use your common sense, okay? But a good basic guideline is no less than twice a week. Right? Because the worst thing that can happen, well, not the worst, but one of the worst things that can happen in a branding marketing situation is that someone who's just heard of you Googles you and gets your Twitter feed page or your Facebook page, and the content is a month old or 2 months old. That's not great because it makes you look like you're not even invested in your own brand. And if you aren't invested in your own brand, how can they expect that you will be invested in the work that they're giving you to do? Does that make sense? Okay. So at least twice a week, all right? And I know one of the reasons that I recommend setting an update schedule, and by that I mean blocking off time on your calendar to work on things. It is so easy to get caught up with work, the actual work that you do, not the branding and the marketing that you're doing with your brand, but the actual work that you do and family commitments or your hobbies or your volunteer work. Life can get super busy, and before you know it, you do look around, it's been a few weeks, and that's not what you want to do. And I handle social media for 3 organizations in addition to my own personal stuff, and I have found the only way I can do that is I block off 3 times a week, 1 time per week for each organization, to update and look for content, and some of it I automate, and I talk about that in another lecture. So definite benefit to that, having that time scheduled, is that it's easy to slip into that headspace. You immediately are just kind of like, oh, this is what I do on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, is I sit down and I find content and I update my social media. Great way to do it. Now, you want to be careful. The reason I say no more than 5 times a week is because you run the risk of spamming people. And if you spam people, unless they are just super heavily invested in your brand, they're going to unfollow you because it can just be too much. I've actually unfollowed people because they do social media too well, in my opinion. It's just a constant. I find all of my feeds are dominated by them, and I needed some space, okay? It wasn't them, it was me. It was actually really them. Anyway, one more thing to consider when you're thinking about your update schedule, remember, update schedule, is the 80-20 rule. And the 80-20 rule states, I'm not making up the 80-20 rule, but I'm kind of making up the word by word of it. 80% of what you put out on social media should be content that is of interest to the people who follow you. 20% should be self-promotion, okay? 80% content of interest to your followers, 20% self-promotion. Please, 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 do not flip those two things. I have actually unfollowed some really brilliant people who are doing some really cool work because they had flipped it. And 80% of the time it's like, oh, I just published this article and I just got interviewed here and look, I'm featured on this. And that's great. I want to know. I'm very happy for them, and I like to know what they're up to. But that was the dominant thing for them. And what I'm really more interested in is, what are they reading? What's going on in their head? What things are inspiring them? Because you may be surprised, but like, people are going to be interested in that in your brand. They're going to want to know what's interesting to you that might be interesting to them. So 80-20 rule. All right, so to review, establishing an update schedule helps in a variety of ways. It helps you keep your content fresh. It makes it easier for you to find stuff because you get in the habit of knowing that that's what you're going to do at that time. It ensures that you don't lose track of time and suddenly have nothing posted for a while. And the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, post stuff of interest to the people who follow you. 20% of the time, promote yourself. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. If you have experience, if you can relate to unfollowing people because they're doing it too well, they're posting all the time, or if they have flipped the 80-20 rule, always interested in your stories. The community can always benefit from hearing them. So get in touch. I hope this was helpful.
Hello, guys. The question before us today: to automate or not to automate? That is the question. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I had to go there. So, there are definite benefits to automating your social media updates, but there are definite downsides as well. And I'm a bad news first kind of person, so I'm going to start with the downsides. One of the big benefits of social media is that it has enabled a sense of personal connection between people to people or between people and companies. It can be amazing to have exchanges on social media with people who share your discipline or your interests who live across the world from you. Likewise, it is extremely satisfying to have a customer service issue and reach out to a company or organization via social media and have an almost immediate response to your question or problem. And I think that when you automate, oftentimes it's obvious that it is automated, whether it comes across as being done by a bot or something that was set up in advance. It can be very obvious, and that can destroy that sense of personal connection and community. So that's a downside in my opinion. Another downside when automating, it can be very tempting to set your updates and then forget about social media and say, well, I've set my social media updates for the week or the month or whatever, and then just kind of check out of social media and not bother to be involved in any conversations that might come up. And that can be a huge mistake, because I know that for me, if I go a couple of hours without checking Twitter, I have missed entire conversations and decision making has been done. And so, lesson learned, it's not a good idea to be away from Twitter for more than an hour, I guess. But seriously, it can lead you to sort of check out of social media, and that is not a good thing, because it is a good way to keep your pulse on your customers or people who you hope will be your customers. So that is another downside. Another one that I think you have to be careful of, and this kind of goes back to the first one in that it has the sense of a bot, is that if people follow you on across social media platforms, remember I said please choose no more than 3, at least 2, but no more than 3. If they follow you across all of the social media platforms that you're on, and you have automatic posting set to go across all 3 or 2 of those, that can get old really fast if you're sharing the same content to the same people across platforms. Now, sometimes it's appropriate to share certain things across disparate platforms. Say that you're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or whatever your country's versions of those things are. And sometimes it might be a great photo. And all 3 of those platforms are fantastic for photo sharing. Nothing in the world wrong with that. But what really gets me is when I see an update from an institution or a person, and I do follow them across different social media, and I see the exact same verbiage that trails off into an ellipsis across all 3 platforms, and you know it was a bot. You know they automated it, and they aren't thinking about it. Your brand, hello everybody, this class is called Personal Branding, emphasis on the personal. So you never want people to get the sense from you that you aren't invested in every aspect of your branding. Because if you just want something that you can set up and forget, that sounds like you aren't very invested in your own brand, in your own life, and that is not a good message to send. So enough with the downsides. I'm going to be positive now, okay? Some benefits. There is no doubt but that automating stuff is a time saver, for sure. I have to update one of my organization's social media very early in the morning, because we found that this particular group is up super early in the morning, and they're just like us, just like everybody else. As soon as they wake up, they roll over, they grab that smartphone, they go to Facebook. So I do not want to be waking up at 4:30 in the morning to update social media for this group of people. And so I love Facebook's scheduling feature, which lets me find great content and set it to post at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Another great use of automation is when you're going to be on vacation. So, especially if you're the only person who handles social media for your brand, which makes sense if you're doing all that work, it's nice if you don't want to leave your followers without fresh content. Remember, we've talked about how you don't want people to find stale content. You can, before you go on vacation, set aside some time, find some great articles, and release them at certain times. That is certainly a huge benefit, and I think that's a great use of it. The other thing that I really like about automating and scheduling updates is that when you are setting up updates for a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever it is that you choose to do, it gives you a clearer idea of what your brand's output looks like for that time period. So, for instance, when you are scheduling, it's a little bit more deliberate. You're more likely to see, oh, wait, gosh, I've got 4 posts about 3D printing of something, or 4 posts about reputation management. Maybe that's too many. Maybe I should take out this one and maybe I should substitute something else in. So it gives you a clearer overall picture of what you're doing with your brand activity. And also, I think you're more likely to carefully proofread if you're doing that, as opposed to, you've got 5 minutes to find an article and post it because you need to get something out there, and you do tend to make more mistakes when you do that. So, I hope this was helpful. Please do get in touch. Let me know your experience with automation and any experiences, good and bad, that you've had on social media with automation. I would love to hear them. I'm sure the community would as well. So I hope this was helpful.
Hey guys, my mission today, which I have accepted, is to try and convince you of the importance of reputation management. Now, I have linked to a presentation that I have created, and I created the original maybe 3 years ago, and it's been refined many times, so it is updated. It's not the same old presentation, but I have linked to that. And so it's about 60, 65 slides, something like that, and I don't want to repeat everything that's in the slide deck here because boring, but I do want to hit some of the highlights, and I would love to hear your thoughts about reputation management, and if I convince you or I don't convince you, please get in touch. I love having those conversations. I will not be offended. So let me know what you think after this lecture. So I have a couple of questions for you. How many of you use a search engine to find out information about your children's teacher? How many of you use a search engine to find out information about people you're thinking about going on a date with? How many of you use a search engine to read reviews of products that you're thinking about buying, or reviews of restaurants about which you're thinking of going? Doctors? How many of you use a search engine to find out if there have been positive and or negative reviews about doctors? We live in a world that has been Yelpified. I don't think I coined that phrase, but I do use that phrase. And what I mean by that is Yelp is a very popular restaurant rating and review site. And to me, everything is becoming Yelpified now. And I do it too. I'm married, so I don't have to Google dates. So I don't have to worry about that. But I do Google products. I do Google restaurants. I use Google as a general search term for search engine, but also Google dominates the search engine market globally. And you'll see that again in the slide deck that I linked to. You'll see that. But whatever search engine you prefer. So we're all doing this in an increasingly product crowdsourced world. We all go looking for information about things before we commit to it, and we want to know. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. But because of that trend, monitoring your reputation, being aware of what your reputation is super, super important. So another question I like to ask is, having thought about that, how affected are you by what you read? And I know I tend to be quite affected by it. And if the literature is anything to go by, and the surveys again, I linked to this in the presentation, you'll find that most people are quite affected by it as well. And reputation management services, because there are such a thing, are now in the billions in the United States alone. There are companies who will help you monitor your reputation and will help you in the event that something bad happens. And I've linked to an episode of a podcast that kind of delves into that a little bit more. It's fascinating and horrible and ultimately good, but give that a listen and let me know what you think about it. So having said all that, I want to talk to you about the importance of establishing a reputation management plan. Now, first of all, you have to have an online presence. So if you're at this point in the course and you haven't set up social media accounts and found a long-form home on the web, please do that. Please go do that, and then come back and watch this again. Once you've done that, you need to monitor your presence. And one great way to do that is to set up search alerts with a search engine. And you can do it with most any search engine. It's pretty easy to figure out. If you can't figure it out, though, definitely let me know and I can get you some instructions. Set up a search alert for your name so that anytime your name is mentioned, you will be notified. This has been super helpful to me. I've never come across anything bad, and I hope I don't. But it is nice to know where you're being mentioned on the web and kind of what people are saying. Not a bad thing at all. Please, please, please check your privacy settings. Just like we talked about setting aside time weekly or monthly, however you want to do it, to update your social media, build in time to check your privacy settings about once a month, because the trend now is to opt everybody into more open settings. Used to be that you had to choose to join that, but now most places just opt you in. So just set aside time once a month, check your privacy settings on all your social media accounts and anything that you're using for your digital presence. That can save you a lot of hassle. And make sure that you're feeding with positive content. Again, we've discussed the importance of making sure that you're updating regularly. So make sure you're putting good stuff out there. And remember the 80-20 rule. Okay, very important. You want to, 80% of what you put out there should be content of interest to your followers. 20% should be promoting your brand. Let me know what you think about this. Eager to hear your stories as always. The community only benefits when we share our stories. So I hope this was helpful.
Well, hello there. I wanted to do a quick demo video for you about how to set up search alerts through a search engine. Now, you'll notice that I've chosen to use Google for this demo. If you don't have Google available to you, or heck, you just prefer a different search engine, that's okay. The mechanics basically apply. They all basically work the same way. The first thing you'll need to do is navigate to the search engine's homepage, and you can see that I'm at google.com. And then if you come over here in the top right corner, you'll see the sign in button. And you need to sign in with your email account. And this is one of my Gmail accounts that I tend to use for work. It's publicly available. Sorry to disappoint. It's not super secret. Anybody can find that Gmail account. So I've put in my password, and I'm going to uncheck the Stay Signed In button because this is a shared computer. So you don't want to forget and stay signed in. Now, it's also giving me the option to save my password, which no, I don't want to do. And now you can see that once I've signed in, hooray for remembering your password, it knows that it's me. So I can come up here to the URL box and type in alerts. Now you'll see that I already have 6 alerts set. I have a couple of different research interests having to do with technology and healthcare, and I also work on an interdisciplinary capstone for optical head-mounted displays such as Google Glass and Vuzix. And part of what I bring to the table is up-to-the-minute current awareness of what's happening in the news with those items. So that's one way that search alerts are exceedingly useful. You'll notice also these 2 search alerts here. Remember, I always take my own good advice, so I do have search alerts set for Kimberly Barker and Kimberly R. Barker at gmail.com. Now, the one I'm going to put in today is Kimberly R. Barker, and I'll tell you why I do that. I have worked very carefully over the last few years to incorporate the R, which is the first initial of my middle name, into my professional identity. It is a further way to distinguish myself from other Kimberly Barkers, although the LEY is a distinguishing feature on its own. But that is just one more subtle, easy way to distinguish me from the other Kimberly Barkers out there in the world. And you will notice that I put quotation marks around that. And this is a Library 101 trick here for you. Whenever you're setting up a search, any kind of search, whether it's just a regular search or a search alert, whatever, if it is a phrase, or in this case a name, you want to put quotes around it, because just like sheep, who are not the most organized creatures in the world and who, left to their own devices, will run around not in an orderly line, but just willy-nilly all over the place, your search terms will get scattered. So just like with sheep, what you have to do is, with sheep, you take a dog and you round them up and put them in a pen and slam the gate, and that forces them to stay together. So think about their quotation marks as the actual pen and your search terms inside of it as sheep. It forces them all to stay together in a particular way. If I did not do that, I would get all kinds of Kimberlys, I would get Barkers, I would get things that were not what I'm looking for. And the whole purpose of a search alert is to make your life easier. So incorporating those, I think you'll find very helpful. The other thing I'd like to point out to you is the show options feature. And this is really nice because, again, it's giving you a lot of control over this particular search query. You can decide how often you want to receive updates. You can decide if you want only specific sources to show up, or if you choose automatic, that's going to be everything. Sadly, I am only truly fluent in English, so I have to leave it as English, but there are lots of options there. And I want to know what might be happening in any part of the world, not just the United States or any particular one region. And you can choose, as far as how many results, only the best or all. All is pretty self-explanatory, and only the best will mean a determination by Google's algorithm. And then you can choose here from specifically where you want these alerts delivered. Now, I have several different email addresses and several different Google addresses, Gmail addresses. But I want these to come to the Kimberly R. Barker one, so I'm going to leave that alone. Now, the other thing I want to show you is the alert preview. And this is really helpful to make sure before you create the alert that you are getting the kinds of results that you want. So say it's a topic about which you're not really sure, you don't really know a whole lot about it. The alert preview will give you some insight into the sort of results that you'll be getting. So you can see, yes, this is me. This is from a blog that I was mentioned on. This is my Twitter bio. This is my bio at the library where I work. This is my about.me page. So yes, all of these are me, which is good. That's great. Tells me I'm on the right track. So now I'm ready to actually create the alert, and that is done with a simple click of the Create Alert button. And now you can see that it's right there. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you have any experience with using search alerts, if you found them to be very useful or maybe not useful at all, maybe you didn't set it up correctly or it really wasn't what you needed and you had to play with your search terms, anything like that, the community would love to hear about that. So please share that with us, and I hope it was helpful.
Hey guys, I want to talk in this lecture about mistakes. Now, I have come up with a way of thinking about mistakes that's sort of a formula, and it's the 1, 2, 4 formula. Again, that's the 1, 2, 4 formula. Number 1 is acknowledging that everybody makes mistakes. If you're human, you're going to make mistakes. Okay, so I'm assuming that all of you out there are human. You may not be. I do not judge, and in fact, I welcome all life forms into this course in this community. But if you're human, you will make mistakes. If you haven't made one yet, I hate to be the person to break it to you, but It's going to happen. So that's the one part of the equation. The two part of the equation is the two things not to do when you make a mistake. Okay, number one is make excuses. Don't make excuses. If you've made a mistake, unless there are truly circumstances that would provide context as an explanation, just don't bother. Because if it's a desperate bid just to dig yourself out of a hole, it just makes people angry. The second thing not to do is not to blame someone else. If you did it, just take responsibility for it, which we'll get into in a minute, but do not blame someone else. It's tacky and it's wrong. Don't do it. The four part of the equation is the four things that you should do when you've made a mistake. Number one is apologize. Look the person in the eye. Look the person in the eye and say, I am sorry for X, Y, Z. Don't give one of those non-apologies. I hate the non-apology. I bet you guys hate the non-apology too. You know what I'm talking about when somebody says, well, I'm sorry if you took it that way. No, that is not an apology. That is somebody pretending to apologize, but not actually apologizing. Please don't do that. If I find out you've done that, I'm going to be very angry with you. Don't do it. My learners are better than that. Okay, so the first thing to do is, yes, apologize. I am sorry for X, Y, Z. The second thing that you want to do in that for occasion is you want to acknowledge that, in fact, it was a mistake. I did this. I'm sorry for this. And then the third thing you want to do is to ask how to make it right. Because acknowledging that you did it is great. Saying that you're sorry and meaning it is fantastic. But if that's where you stop, that's a problem because you have created a bad situation for someone else through your own actions. And it's up to you to make it right. So the third part of that is asking how you can make it right. Now, all of the rest of this hinges on number 4, which is follow through. If you acknowledge your mistake, if you apologize, if you ask how you can make it right, and then you don't bother to follow through, the whole thing has collapsed. Now, if you make a mistake, when you make a mistake, don't see it as the end of the world because truthfully, it's an opportunity for you to demonstrate your brand integrity. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and purposefully make mistakes as a way to present yourself as a person of integrity. That would be so bizarre. So that would be weird. Don't do that. But what I'm saying is that making a mistake, the way you handle it, the way you respond to the person that you've wronged demonstrates a lot about you, your brand, and the integrity of both. So think about that. So again, you've got the 1, 2, 4 rule. Number 1, everybody's going to make mistakes. Everyone. See what I did there? Everyone. The 2 part of that is don't make excuses. Don't blame someone else. And the 4 part of that is acknowledge your mistake, apologize, ask how you can make it right, and then follow through. I'd love to hear your thoughts about a time perhaps you made a mistake and how you handled that and how it affected your professional or personal relationships, however personal you want to get. And maybe if you have experienced a time when someone wronged you or made a mistake that affected you or your work. I think we could all benefit from hearing those stories. So please share that with us in the forums, and I hope this was helpful.
Hey guys, today I want to talk about digital privacy, but before I get to that, I want you to know where I am because this is my favorite building on grounds, and I realize that that can be somewhat controversial because everybody likes the Rotunda. The Rotunda's awesome. Okay, yes. All right, the Rotunda is awesome, but I have such a fondness for this building. It is my absolute favorite place, and when friends come to visit me, I always have to bring them to Brooks Hall, and I'll give you just my camera right here in a totally unprofessional camera move. You can see the side of it. It looks nothing like any other building on campus, and I love it. It originally was a natural philosophy museum, which is one of my favorite topics, so it was inevitable that Brooks Hall would be my favorite. So anyway, I just had to shout out my favorite building. Sorry. Welcome to the MOOC travelogue. That's actually what this is about. I'm just kidding. Okay, so digital privacy. If you take nothing away from this lecture except one thing, like if you're just like, you know what, I've decided I'm only taking one thing away, please make this the thing. With digital privacy, the rule I want you to follow is just assume there is no privacy. Okay? Just assume that anything that you put out there digitally is going to be seen by your worst enemy. Now, in a perfect world, we don't have enemies and we all love each other, and, you know, that'll be an awesome world when we can get there. But really what you should do is just assume that what you put out there could be viewed by anyone at any time, because it really could. Now, obviously, you know, I've talked a lot about integrity and honesty and all of that sort of thing, and certainly I personally will take stands on matters of conscience in which I believe, and I don't care if people necessarily disagree with them when it's something like that. But do think carefully, because, you know, you don't always have to share everything that you believe. Not everything is a matter of conscience, right? So I think a good rule is just to assume that anything you put online could be seen by your employer or your worst enemy or somebody you're trying to get funding from. Just put everything through that lens. Again, I am not arguing against myself and saying that you shouldn't be authentic, you shouldn't be truthful, you shouldn't have integrity. Just think carefully is what I'm saying. Now, online and digital privacy is a huge issue. I'm working on another huge presentation, sort of along the lines of my reputation management presentation, which hopefully you've seen by now. Hopefully you've reviewed that. It's going to be the same in scope, which is to say pretty big. I'm still working on that. So this is a very big issue. And so I can't cover everything in this lecture, and you wouldn't want me to, trust me. But there are a couple of things that I want to point out to you. Number one is that we used to assume that privacy was our right and that we had it. And someone had to go out of their way to violate our privacy. That is not the case now, particularly with a digital lifestyle. You should assume that there is no such thing as free Wi-Fi. You know, the Wi-Fi that we love to get when we go to hotels or when we're in coffee shops or whatever. You're paying for that through allowing that provider, whomever it is, whether it's the hotel or a coffee shop or whatever, you're paying for that by giving them access to whatever it is that you're looking at online. They are monitoring that, they're tracking that, because there's a whole movement towards big data, which I may or may not do another lecture on big data. It could be helpful, but big topic there. But they all want access to your data because they want to know as much about their customers as they can to know how to better market to them, to know how to better reach them, to know how to price things, frankly, let's be honest. So just remember, free Wi-Fi is like a free puppy. There's no such thing as a free puppy. There's no such thing as free Wi-Fi. You're paying for it. And if you are paying to have secure wireless at home, well, you're paying for it with money, right? So what I'm saying is you're going to pay one way or the other. Frankly, I would rather pay money, although I'm guilty of using free Wi-Fi as well. Don't think I'm trying to say that I'm better than you, because I'm not. I totally dig free Wi-Fi. But just be cognizant of it. If you are going to use it, know what you're getting and what they're getting out of it. Wow, that was a long discourse on that, but a lot of people don't understand that, so I just want to make sure that you can't say I didn't tell you about that, because I did. All right. The other aspect of digital privacy that I want to discuss is passwords. Now, the creation of good passwords is kind of controversial among some tech support people. I have seen almost fights break out on this topic because people disagree about what constitutes a good password. I'll link to some articles. I don't want to weigh in on this, but I will link to some articles. I definitely have my own opinion about it, but how about we fight it out in the forums? I'm just kidding. No fighting. But that is really important. Having a really good password that is not likely to be very hackable, very, very important. So think about those things, respond, get in touch, let me know your thoughts about that. And if there's anything else on this topic that you'd like for me to address, please let me know. This is definitely iterative, and I can always make more videos. So just reach out, let me know, and I hope this was helpful.